Hi guys, this is Steve. Listen, today is 4/20, April the 20th, and I want to do a little video on how to make a pipe. Now there's all kinds of ways to make a pipe, bush pipe I'm talking about, not a fancy pipe, although you can make them just as fancy as you want to make them. You know, put a lot of time and effort into it, or you can just make them sweet and simple, or, you know, however you want to do it. The point is not what you smoke in the pipe. The point here in this video is making the pipe itself. There's all kinds of things you can put in a pipe. This is a mixture of mints that I dried out. If you don't have a dehydrator, you can dehydrate herbs by just putting them in the oven on the lowest setting and opening the door about that far, maybe sticking a spoon in there or something, and it dehydrates the herb without roasting it or anything. But if you wanted to roast something before you were to smoke it or make a tea out of it, this is dandelion root, and easy enough to find out in the yard, and roast you up some and smoke them or whatever. So primarily, you can use all kinds of different ways, methodologies and whatnot to make a pipe, a bush pipe. You can use a drill, or you can make a bow drill and use a bow drill to burn out a bowl. You can use your bush knife, or you can use an X-Acto knife, or you could make it as rough or as finished as you want. You can use sandpaper, you can use wet sand. That's not the point of this thing. The point of this thing is how you're going to make a vehicle to take an herb and burn it and ingest the smoke, or take in the smoke. And a lot of herbs are good for different things. I made a small list last night. My memory's not real good. And just kind of, quick little list of things that you can make either by itself or in a mix and smoke. Catnip is good for colds, fevers, insomnia, anxiety, menstrual cramps. So let's say poop hit the fan and you're having your period, you smoke some catnip. There you go. Lemongrass, which is used a lot along with different other things in a mix to create a different flavor and smoke. Mullein, long known by bushcraft mountain people, is a good plant to dry and use smoke for congestion. It's an expectorant, so it can kind of clean your lungs out a little bit. Yes, smoke can clean your lungs out a little bit. Peppermint is good for blood circulation. Comfrey is a sedative. And, mugwort is kind of a spiritual, takes you on a spiritual trip, a very mild spiritual trip. Lemon balm, another one used for, to add into a mix that you would smoke, but it's also good for viral infections. Of course, tobacco, the tobacco you get in a Marlboro is a lot different than the tobacco you might have found, growing out in the Midwest somewhere or out west and hung up to dry and smoked. A lot different. And rosemary, we know scientifically improves your memory, but it also counters asthma. So let's say you were out, or a poop hit the fan scenario, or you can have these things set up in little jars, dried out. Have a fun time. I will tell you something that is often overlooked when discussing pipes and setting around fire and smoking, or just smoking. Period. I don't care if it's cigarettes or if it's reefer or whatever it is. When you smoke with somebody, there's a bond that takes place. Anybody who's ever been at a job where you went out and had a smoke break with your coworkers knows that real soon there's a bond that develops between that group of smokers, where they talk a lot, they bum cigarettes off one another, they share in that. Well, with cigarettes, in my opinion, an addiction. They share in that addiction, but of course, the American Indians. We know the stories of them sitting around the fire smoking something. Most people think it was tobacco, or a form of herbs, but some kind of herb. So there is a bond that develops in the peace pipe. You know, and when it's a bond that also is has a pleasurable effect, something you're sharing that has a pleasurable effect, then it amplifies that bond. And when it is an experience, kind of like going on a vacation together, so to speak, it even increases that bond more. So now, I'll also say, if it's illegal, it will strengthen that bond as well. But anyway, that's all here and there. And I will be taking you outside here shortly because I want to show you my favorite tree for making a pipe. It's a sumac tree, not to be confused with poison sumac. I want to keep this short, so I'm not going to pull out the drill. I will show you some things though here. This is a small branch from the sumac tree, and I've taken a lot of these branches, cut them to the size I want, and rubbed them with some beeswax. Although you can use anything that keeps it soft, and you can use you can even use this hair wax, beeswax stuff. But there's Murray's beeswax and whatever. But you keep it, and then won't crack on you. But if you look really close, and I really hope I can get this. I'm not sure if the light's going to play with me or not, but we'll also look outside. In the very center of this, you see that darker area? Well, that's a pith. That's the pith of this wood. And by pith, I don't mean something a dog does on a tree. I mean that it's a soft area of the wood. And because of this pith, and you can see here, that was solid. I'm putting this right in the center, and you can see I can push right into it. It's a soft part of the wood. So you can heat a wire, or in a larger situation, you could use this meat skewer. This, what do you call it, where you put the meat and the vegetables on there and you put it over the fire. Whatever this is. You can use this and, get this thing hot, like put it over a fire or a candle or alcohol stove or whatever, and you can literally burn the center out of this. You can burn the pith right out of it. I want to say that again. You can burn the pith right out of it. And so you can do that with any number of little, think out of the box if you want kind of things. Or you can use a drill. A lot of people just use a drill. Now, I've got a couple here you can see that are in different stages of development. I'll go through a few of them here for you. Little bitty ones, And these are primarily the stems. And these aren't going to, some of these are cut, skinned, and some of them are not skinned. And, again, these are primarily the stems. Here's a finished bowl, and I've given a few of these away as gifts, and I really like them. I mean, there's a flavor to this wood as well. So here's a finished product. You can see where you take a stem that you've hollowed out, and you basically, pardon me here for a second, you basically stick the stem inside the larger bowl area, and you can glue it, or you can just get it to fit. Most of these are just to fit. They're just in there tight. Now you can see how this could be used. This piece here. I've got two holes. I've got one that's cut down here and one that's here, and I need to connect the two. Once they're connected, that's a little smoking apparatus all in itself. So here's an unused bit of, gosh, I hope this light's picking this up. I'm not sure if it is or not. Anyway, just a branch. Now, here's some bowls. You can see they go all the way through. And I prefer to do it this way because using this kind of wood and using the pith that's inside to clean these out, I'll show you how to plug one in. Now you could just go, an example like this, you could just maybe take the pith out to about here and then put your stem in here. You see, so you'd have something like, well, maybe like this. And leave this blocked off. But I don't like doing that because the pith is soft and the pith will burn. So I like cutting all the way through them. And you can, you can take some of the skin around there off, or you can, not, whatever you want to do. You can take your knife and in this case, and you can make that hole larger by just using your knife and just going around and around and around. Then what you do is you take a piece of just branched, preferably a different kind of branch, or you can just use a piece of this, just a little piece of twig, and you take it and you stick it in the end of this thing that we talked about, and you just simply plug it. You just plug it. So that's plugged with a hardwood, and it won't burn through as fast or as easy. So you can see that a little better here with what I've done. You see right there, you can see where I've plugged it. Now I prefer that because you can use a hardwood to plug it with, and it's not going to burn as readily as that pith does. So here's another one that I did and kind of dandied up a little bit. And this is all good to go. Now, you don't have to use little screens in there. I put a screen in this one. You don't have to, though. And you can, again, you can make it as fancy or as unfancy as you want. You can make a little Gandalf branch there, or you can, however you want to do it. But you can do this out in the woods, or you can do this at home, like I said, with a drill, or, Elmer's glue and wood glue, or you can use, just however you want. But you can do it. That's what I'm saying. You can do it. Okay, well, let's go out and I'll show you this sumac tree. But you don't have to use sumac trees. You can use, I would recommend finding a tree in your area, though, that has a pith running through the center of it. You can also, for the stems, you can also use reeds, various reeds and/or bamboos to do this with. But the point is to have a hollow stem, to get a hollow stem. And I don't like spending a bunch of time doing that. So, but let me take you outside and show you what to look for in terms of this sumac tree. Again, lots of trees you can use. You just have to look around, and use some common sense and have some fun. Now, I would recommend if you decide you want to fancy this stuff up, I recommend keeping the smoking area pretty much natural, and or maybe just using some beeswax or something to seal it with, because you are going to be ingesting whatever you put in there. So I wouldn't want to use polyurethane. I wouldn't want to use, kind of weird oil, at least on the inside, where you're actually burning the stuff. So keep that in mind. All right, guys. This is what the top of these sumacs look like. These aren't totally filled out yet. It's still spring, but you can see they almost have a tropical look to them. They're very fast-growing trees. They're often called weed trees by landscapers because they propagate by seed as well as underneath the ground. We'll get closer to the leaf structure and stuff so you can take a look at them. Here's just a branch that you can see pretty clearly what it looks like. But here's a real good example over here. Now this is staghorn sumac. This will get little staghorns on them, that you can make lemonade out of, and things of that nature. So here we go. If you can see this, I hope you can. These, like I said, they grow up. They get these little umbrella shoots off of them, and if I were to break this, you'd have one grow off here. So you're not destroying nature or anything. But you also get these dead branches. This is a dead branch. I want you to see this pith in here. Oh, maybe it wasn't a dead branch. Anyway. They'll fool you. Yeah. And there you can see the pith really well. Right there. That's really soft stuff. Look at that. Now another way you can make a pipe is to literally split the pipe in two and then glue it. You can use pine pitch glue, or if you know how to make that, or you can use whatever kind of glue you want. But that's that pith I was talking about there. You can see that's what you want to look for in your tree, whatever it is you choose and pick out. If this is in there, you can burn that out with a wire, or you can just slowly dig it out and work at it. And it's a fun project to just mess around and play with and whatnot. So now I will mention that this sumac, every part of this sumac is a edible or suckable or whatever. And see how these leaves are kind of reddish? Well, they will turn a bright red in the late summer and fall. And when they do, you can dry those things out and smoke them too, because they're supposed to be fairly healthy for you as well. Well, I hope this come up here. Hey, I hope this has been instructional to you, at least inspiring enough to maybe get on the net and search out the 50 videos on making a bush pipe, and or just getting out there and farting around and figuring it out yourself. But a lot of fun, and again, experimenting with different herbs that are around your house that you can smoke. I don't advocate smoking a bunch of anything, because your lungs just don't need it. But an occasional puff here and pass there is good for the friendship. So have a nice 420.